This request came in by email from one of our YouTube viewers. It says, I've been painting for several decades and have depended heavily on the earth colors such as burnt sienna, burnt umber, and yellow ochre. You never mention using any of these colors. Why not? What do you have against those dependable colors? I don't have anything against them, but I have a better solution. I too started out painting with earth colors on my palette. The major earth colors that we are all familiar with are burnt umber, which is this right here. You see I do have some. This is burnt umber, and when mixed with white, burnt umber can give us variations in value that fall in this line right here. So we'll just leave it at that for the moment. And burnt sienna is one that is probably a standard color on just about everybody's palette, except I don't use it on my palette. But this is burnt sienna, and we'll put it right here in its purest form. Burnt sienna, it will vary in color from manufacturer to manufacturer. So this is the Winsor & Newton burnt sienna. And we add white to the burnt sienna, and we can get a mixture. I'll keep it about the same value so you can see a comparison. When we add white, we can get the full value range that goes from the darkest version here to the lightest light. But this is just to show you the color mixed with white. And you can see a lot of people depend on burnt sienna in working with skin tones and things like that. And then we have another standard color out of the tube, which is called yellow ochre. That's a standard earth color that a lot of people use. And yellow ochre is another one of those that will vary from tube. It depends on where they get the pigment. All these come from earth. The pigments come from earth for all of these. And they go through various processes before they get into the paint tubes. And yellow ochre, some yellow ochres will lean more towards a little bit more towards the yellow orange, some lean a little bit towards green. This particular one is the Winsor & Newton yellow ochre, and so this is it right here. Now there also is the yellow ochre light, which Richard Schmid kept on his palette, and I have on my palette still, but I never use it. Very rarely will I use it. And then I can show you what yellow ochre does when mixed with white. It gives us a little bit more ability to read its color, and it already is about a middle value color, a little darker in some brands, a little lighter in others. But this is sort of what we get when we mix white with yellow ochre. Now, so why don't I use these anymore? They're beautiful. They do some beautiful things, and you can mix them with other colors and get some good, wonderful results. But the deeper I got into being excited about what colors do to each other, and the fact that every color is not just one color, not just one thing, but it's three things going on at once. And recently I've been calling these not color notes but color chords, because what's going on in every color, no matter whether it's an earth color or any kind of color, a single color is a hue, it's a value, and it's a saturation, a degree of saturation of that hue. Well, every one of these is, burnt umber is not a hue, burnt sienna is not a hue, yellow ochre is not a hue. They're the name of a tube color. But the hue is something else. The hue of burnt umber is very, very hard to see because it's a very low saturation of another color. But if we hold the color wheel up to it, we might begin to see maybe a little bit of red revealed in it, as if we had an intensity wheel or a saturation degree of saturations, where here we might see that. And what I've discovered is that I can actually create burnt umber by using complements. I'm going to show you that in just a moment. Same thing with burnt sienna. Now we see burnt sienna, we can see a little bit more hue. It's not quite as unsaturated, desaturated. Burnt umber is almost neutral in its saturation. burnt sienna, you can see, kind of leans towards the orange to red orange. You can feel that right here on the color wheel. And I can create burnt sienna by mixing complements. Same thing with yellow ochre. Yellow ochre, you can see, is more of a yellow-orange on the color wheel. I can create yellow ochre by adding the complements. Now here's why I prefer doing that, by adding the complement rather than using these colors out of the tube, because then I can create a range of color that I want. Now of course I could do that. I could take yellow ochre and mix a little bit of a highly saturated yellow orange to it, or high saturated yellow or red, and lean it in various directions. But why do that if I can control the mixture? So to show you how close we can get to these with the mixtures, we can start with burnt umber. And remember I said that burnt umber seems to lean more towards a red to red-orange. So I can take, this is the cadmium red light right here. And we look on the color wheel, we see that the complement of red-orange is blue-green. Well, blue-green is a color I happen to have on my palette. I love this Rembrandt version of Viridian. And so I can take the Viridian and I can add the Viridian into this, or maybe add this, say, the red into Viridian, and I can get very, very close to burnt umber. There we are right in here. Keep working it, keep working it. The cadmium red light is a really, really high tinting strength color. Now I can lean that just a little bit more towards, we can lean that just a little bit more towards the blue of the green and add ultramarine blue to it. Now you see I have the variations in here then. Suppose I'm painting the shadows and the skin tone. I have the variations in here where I can add more red to that Rembrandt Viridian. The other Viridians I don't care for. The Rembrandt is different. It's transparent and deep dark. So you can see here that I can get all sorts of variations by allowing more of the red-orange to go into that. And I can also have those variations in value. And I can even lean it in this direction. And by then leaning the blue-green a little bit more towards blue than green, by adding some ultramarine blue, you'll get burnt umber right there, right on the spot. And so I can show you that just by stroking some of this right here, right next to the burnt umber. I've got that a little bit. Oh, that's the other thing you can do too. Leaning it towards the hues that you mix. You see, you got that variation that you can get, those subtle variation from one brush stroke to another that you can get when you use those complements, and you can lean the color towards one color or another. So this is why I love using the complements. Here it is. There it is right there. You cannot tell the difference between the two. That's why I love using the complements rather than the earth colors. And I kept the earth colors on my palette for a while. I found I didn't use them. They were there. They were not, I was not reaching for them at all, because I became excited about how I could lean those hues just by allowing the brush to move in one direction or the other of two complements that create those hues. So for burnt sienna, remember I said that burnt sienna is a little bit more red-orange. Okay, so this is the cadmium red deep, which is a red-orange, but it's not leaning towards towards orange in the degree that the burnt sienna does. So we'd add a little bit more. This is the cadmium yellow deep, which is a yellow-orange. So we can do that. And now we get possibilities there between these two colors. And then we can go across the color wheel and add, well, we could add the blue to the blue-green to that. And let me show you what we would get when we do that. We could start out by adding, well, let's just get the blue-green, and we get the blue right here. And we begin to add this now into here, and you can watch that burnt sienna pop out right there. See it coming out? We can see that burnt sienna just seeping out right there so beautifully. And I can, if I'm painting, I have then the ability to move, to lean the color in one direction or another. I can lean it more towards the red if I want to, or I can lean it more towards the green if I want to. I can lean it more towards the blue. I get all those variations there that are in burnt sienna right in there. Now, you can see that we're getting very, very close right in there to what we have right here. And now I can stroke some of that right beside the burnt sienna. You see that it's very, very close. And if I kept working, you can, and you get there. Here you get the variations. You get variations when you buy tubes. Some burnt siennas are less opaque, some are more opaque, some lean a little bit more towards red, orange, some a little bit more towards the blue. But then when you're using the complements to mix them, you get all those variations, and you can actually use the variations while you're painting. So that's now let me show you about yellow ochre. Yellow ochre, you said, I remember I read that yellow ochre as being yellow-orange, more in the yellow-orange range, as a hue. So I can use the yellow-orange. Just reach up for the cadmium yellow deep. There it is in this high saturation. Now if we look on the color wheel, opposite yellow-orange we see blue-violet. If that yellow-orange are leaning a little bit more towards yellow, then I would move more towards violet. If it's leaning more towards blue or towards orange, I can lean more towards. You see, we have this capability of flexibility for variation to keep that color richer rather than just having one single hue as we're mixing the various values of a color. Okay, so I'm going in now to this is dioxazine purple, which leans a little bit more, towards the blue-violet. Now, so as I pull that into the yellow-orange, I want you to watch what happens. Getting our yellow ochre is popping through right in there. For heaven's sakes, just look at that. So we will just paint a stroke. Be sure I have a nice clean brush there to do that with. And I'll paint a stroke of this right here, and you can see. Now, it's because of those variations. It's because that when I'm using complements to create earth colors where I need earth colors, we notice that colors do not stay the same like from one area to the other. Hues can lean towards each other. Reds towards oranges, oranges towards reds, blues towards greens, and so on. And it's that flexibility and that gradation of their leaning towards each other that will give us the really rich colors that we can use in order to interpret the richest possible, our richest possible impression as we're painting. Be sure to view all of our quick tips. And while you're doing so, subscribe to the channel, click on the bell so you'll always get a notice when we produce a new quick tip, which is every week. And if you have a question, leave it in the comments section and we'll make a quick tip for you. Also, take a trip over to DianneMize.com where I have full-length lessons, downloads, DVDs, lots of other stuff there, some free stuff for you. And while you're there, you can subscribe to the newsletter, and that way you'll always be informed every time we do something new.